flat serve versus slice serve. Flat, as the name implies, is a serve that is less spinny. It has less rotation on the ball, and it is usually the first serve that you should be learning because it is slightly easier. Serving is not easy by all means, but the flat serve should be your first, and then the slice serve, and very lastly, the kick serve. My name is Meike Babel, former top 30 WTA pro, and I'm not going to go over the very fundamentals of grip, stance, and then release motion of the serve. That will be a different video. Today we're really just going into the nitty-gritties of what really is different between a flat serve and a slice. So let's jump right into it. The major difference between a slice and a flat serve is actually only 4 to 6 degrees of tilt in your racket face when you're making contact. Now 4 to 6 degrees is not really a whole lot. Pretty much everything else on the flat serve and the slice serve can be very, very similar. Of course, the toss location can be a little different. However, if you look at the pros, they can serve all serves with the exact same toss because you don't want to give away with your toss location what kind of serve you're hitting. But since we're not pros, we will probably adjust our toss a little bit. So let's get going with the fundamentals of the flat serve. So come with me a little closer to net. So I'm using these junior balls because they have those two distinct colors, and it makes it visually a lot easier to understand and then also see the difference between the two serves. When I'm swinging up, whether I'm hitting a flat serve or a slice serve, my upswing is the same. I'm going to lead with the edge of my hand or the edge of the racket. So you're swinging up to the ball with the edge, but you are then pronating your forearm so that you're meeting the ball flat on. And of course the ball has a little bit of spin, but I hope you can see that. That it has very, very little spin. So I'm having the edge of my hand and the butt of the racket pointing to the sky, and then I rotate my thumb up and out so that I then make complete flat contact. So we can look at it from the front. You see the butt of my racket and the tip of my racket pointing down, and then I'm reaching up and I make contact flat. So you see my entire racket head face. Now to feel the difference between a flat serve and a slice serve, we're going to start to work in progressions. And I'm really going to break it down because a lot of people really have issues with the one major thing that will allow you to learn all serves really well, and that's the pronation. You've heard it in every single video that you've seen on the planet. What pronation is in the serve, when you're reaching up and out, look at my thumb here. My thumb will be down and back, and I will reach up and out, and my thumb will turn up and out. So it will be a rotation here of my forearm. So just do that a couple of times. You look at your palm, and then you rotate out. That is pronation. And in various ways, you're using that for your serves. So the first thing that I want to do is a really, really simple step, which helps a lot of people feel the difference and feel how you have to move your arm to make contact completely flat with the ball. We're not even using the racket yet. So all I want you to do is line up to the court. You could just do that anywhere. You don't even have to aim yet a whole lot. But what I want you to do is start with the palm facing to you, and then literally just bumping the ball forward, trying to make contact with the palm of your hand. Because nowhere else in our life do we have an overhead motion where we're pronating, other than in playing sports, of course. When you are doing these progressions, though, make sure that you are side on to the court. You are already in your proper positioning to the court, meaning that my left shoulder, my left hip, the tip of my left foot, which you can't see right now, are facing slightly towards the right hand doubles alley. Because I definitely don't want to do this. That's a volleyball serve. I don't want to do that. So do a couple of these, simply toss them up, and then hit the ball with your hand. The next progression is use your racket and choke it up. Drop the racket back. By the way, we're not doing the scratch your racket anymore. That was a myth from 40 years ago. I don't know, when I started serving, so that doesn't apply anymore. So you're in a letter L form, letter L here, let the racket drop, because eventually when we have the whole serve in place, you will want to come into a position here, the loading position, and then even later on into what's called the cocking position. And you can't get there if you're not side on. And what you're trying to work on now, again, see I have my palm facing to me, and I'm reaching up. The edge of the racket is leading up as if I want to hammer and nail into the ceiling. And then I'm turning my hand up and out. And since the racket face is the extension of my hand, I should now have a completely flat on contact. Here's what I want to work on. Got my letter L, and I'm just coming up and out, and I'm making contact here. And of course, we're still only in the flat serve. So the next step in the progression is that you're now having a full grip. You're coming all the way down on your grip. Still stay on the service line. And you're working on your pronation there. Okay, we're using the full motion now. Where do I then want to toss the ball? So for me, about a foot or a foot and a half is way enough. By virtue of your tossing arm pointing to the net post, it will be in the court. So to my mind, there is no need to toss it in further. Now, the pros do it, but the pros also generate an enormous amount of energy that propels them up and out. I don't want you to work on that as much in this video yet. What I want you to work on, though, is that as you're tossing, you are getting into your trophy position, and the keys there are shoulder over shoulder and hip over hip. And what I mean by that, if I were to face to the court there, is that when I'm in my position here, you see that I have my left shoulder stacked over my right and my left hip over my right here. I'm still using the junior balls, so I'm now working on all of this together, and I still want you to actually stop here and see if you can come from this position here, your loading position, to dropping the racket behind you. Tip of the racket will point down to the ground, and leading with the edge of the racket and then squaring it up. So let's see if I can do it. So now go into your full motion. You're leading with the edge and you're pronating, and then you follow through to your left. And a good key is shine that butt cap over to the other side of the court, because then I know that you pronate it. Because if you don't, you're pushing through and you're ending up here. So again, I'm serving. There we go. So to my mind, the toss location in terms of where I'm tossing it up there is about 12:30. I don't want to have a 12 o'clock for a flat serve. That will be your kick serve location. The reason why you don't want a 12 on a flat serve is because you're coming more from behind the ball, and being completely straight here is actually putting a lot of strain on your shoulder. So you want to have at contact point a little bit of an angle here. And you get that, of course, when you toss the ball just ever so slightly to your right. So 12:30 to me is an acceptable toss. And when you're practicing, be really picky with the tosses. Meaning when you're not having the proper toss, the toss that you want, let it come down. Don't ingrain a bad motion. So that is a flatter serve. And yes, we're starting with the same progression. So everything stays the same except the toss location. We'll talk about that in a second. And the fact that you're not going to pronate quite as much. Peeling around the ball. peel it like an orange, or carve around the ball. Those cues are difficult and or not helpful because you're ending either in almost a side arm, but you can't really get the best of your serves or the optimum of your serve if you're all the way here on faster serves. You can do that with very little pace, that still works, but if you're fully accelerating, you're doing everything right, you're gonna launch it into the side fence. So that's what we don't want to think about. Think more about really just pronating a little bit less. So that's what I'm trying to do. Everything else, how you take the racket back, how you're moving it up, again, leading with the edge of the racket, and then meeting the racket is the exact same thing, only that you have your racket face ever so slightly tilted. So drop the racket, and we're doing it with the hand. So you're going up here, and of course you're not going to get the ball anywhere, but you will feel the difference from a very flat ball to a little bit more rotation. So do that a couple of times, then grab your racket, choke up on it, and we'll go back to our second step. And now you're definitely getting a different result when you're not completely square when you're coming at the ball, but leaving the racket face ever so slightly tilted. And you see that the ball veers off to my left. And that's literally just 4 to 6 degrees. So moving on in your progression, now you have the full grip. And now that you have a different lever, the addition of your entire length of the racket, you see distinctly that the ball curves. But it's not my arm. Again, I cannot stress enough. I'm not peeling around it. It's just the little tilt from flat on to about here. I'm going with my full motion, but I'm stopping up here just past contact point and working on seeing this. And you see that they, again, go over to your left. Now, where should you toss the ball? In terms of how far into the court, to my mind, it stays the exact same, about a foot, because we have our arm reaching into the court already. So as you release the ball, I would not recommend to have an angle on it. It should come off your hand perpendicular to the ground. On the clock face, the most, 1 o'clock, the absolute most. If you're going further than that, all of a sudden you have that. And as I said, on a slow ball with little pace, you can control this. But when we go into the full motion with complete load, with everything, that's going to be really hard to control. Actually kind of works with the red ball. That is a dreadful toss, so let it come down. All right, go into regular balls. And you see the distinct difference there in terms of the location of the ball, where I'm placing it. So I'm giving you a few more drills to learn and feel that pronation bit of the serve. So one of the ones that I used when I was little, that's how I was taught, was to have my racket up here and then roll that ball back like this. Because you have to definitely turn your forearm, and also then, of course, that translates into your wrist pointing from up and out to down and back here. And then if you start using this motion here and just work your way up here by moving your elbow and your arm, that is when you're then getting into the pronation up above your head. Another way to work on pronation is to use the fence. And I'm using that here. Palm pointing to me, and then I'm slapping the fence here. And of course I can then use the extension of my racket and do that up here.